Hello, listeners. Hi, my name is Madhavi, and I'm so happy to have you on UppTalk. You have come to the right place if you want to learn about IT and do really cool things with your hands. We are not just another IT company when I say UppTalk. Think of us as your learning partner dedicated to helping you reach your full potential. We have top notch hands on courses to help you build your business, whether you are new to technology or want to move up in your current job. Let's look around this as our first step towards learning.
Today, we are going to talk about some use cases where we will learn how do we onboard accounts manually inside CyberArk and how do we provision our end users or individual users access to those accounts. Let me log into the GBBUE layer right here. I'll use my domain administrator account, which is democom. And let's also log into the Active Directory. We have two use cases here. The first use case is basically there are two accounts called PA1 and PA2. There are two privilege accounts created in Active Directory. We need to onboard these accounts to CyberApp, which is these two are very high privileged accounts. We need them onboarded inside CyberApp that we can impose all the controls on these accounts. We can generate audit trails for any sessions that are being initiated using these accounts. Passwords of these accounts should be rotated every 30 days automatically. This is the requirement. We have the P1 and P2 account created. Yesterday we created two accounts for P2 and P1 in Active Directory. Let me open those accounts. Let's also quickly log into the PBWA here itself. You can log into your PBWA in your machine as well, as long as you have the public IP. The format to log in will be happysip publisip of your PBWA server/password wallet. This way, the PBWA will be more faster and more effective. And we do not have to wait for that server to load. Let's log into the PBWA using my CyberArk administrator account. On board these accounts PA1 and PA2, we need a few things in place. The first thing we need is a platform. Platforms are basically processes, set of processes defined for your CPM and PSM to follow. We have talked about the platforms before as well. Policies will always be mapped on the platform level, and policies are always going to be mapped on the platform level. You cannot map policies on one single account or a particular state. You'll have to map the policies on the platform. We have a requirement with this use case. The accounts that PA1 and PA2 that we want to onboard We have a requirement that the password should change every 30 days. To configure this, we'll have to define a policy on the platform where we want to onboard the PLY1 and PA2 account. The policy should be a password change policy. If I go to the Policies tab here, there is a password management policy here. A require password change every X stage. I can change the value here directly, but that will be effective for all the platforms that I have. I do not want that. I want this policy to be changed for one specific platform where I want to onboard the PA1. Instead of changing the value directly on the master policy, I'll create an exception here. I'll go to Add Exception. I'll select Windows Domain Account because we are not using local accounts. We are onboarding an account created on Active Directory domain and go with Windows Domain Account. Define the password policy exception. What is the requirement here? Date. I'll go with 30 days, click on Finish, and that's it. I have created an exception for the password change policy for our Windows domain platform. If I go to Policy by Platform and choose Windows Domain Platform, you'll be able to see that the password management period is now up to 30 days. Any account that I onboard in this Windows Domain Platform will have the password rotation period set to 30 days. We have configured a platform. A target address is going to be the IP address of the server where the account is created. In this case, PI1 and PI2 is created on domain. We'll just use the IP address of our domain controller. We know the username has to be PA1 and PA2. Password. We have defined the password of those accounts while creating the accounts in Active Directory. When I created the PA1 and PA2 account, I had defined the password. I know the password. I can use the same password. We have 4 out of 5 parameters configured. The only thing we don't have at this point is a save where we onboard the account and define the access levels. I'll just quickly create a save here. Go to Add Save. I'll say, let's say, use case save. Use case save. Description, let me just copy the name of the save itself. I'll enable the object level access control. Basically define the granular level of access. We define object level access control. Assigned to CPM, we do not have the CPM yet, but I think we installed the CPM right. That's something we'll do later. Ideally, if you have installed the CPM should come up here. But in this particular infrastructure, I think we do not have CPM yet. I'll do that later. All right, I'll quickly save this save. Now that we have the save created, we have the use case save. We should be good to onboard the account. We have all the necessary parameters in place. Let's do this quickly. Let's quickly onboard the account. Onboarding an account, we have multiple ways to do it. Basically, you're not going to depend on manual onboarding every time because you might have a lot of accounts to onboard in one single. You have multiple ways you can do automatic onboarding since itself. And that is something that we are going to talk about in coming sessions. But it is important to understand the basics as well. Let's see how do we work with manual onboarding if you have 1 or 2 accounts in place. On the bottom, on the top right, you'll see an option called Add Account. Go to Add Account. System type should be Windows for now. Platform, we have defined the policies on Windows Domain Account Platform. Since I selected the Windows system type, It's only showing up the platforms that are related to Windows accounts. We have three platforms here, one for local accounts, one for domain accounts. I'll go with domain ones. That is where we define the policy. Save. We'll select the use cases. Save. We'll define the properties quickly. Address should be the IP address of the server where the account is created. I'll copy the IP address of our Active Directory server. Let's quickly define the IP address. The username will be P1. These are the mandatory parameters. If you notice, password is set to a password. It says optional because, just like we talked about in the CPM password management process, we can onboard the accounts with a blank password and later do a reconciliation process to auto-synchronize the password. We can use a more powerful account to trigger the password reset later on. But for now, I'll define the correct password here. We'll talk about reconciliation later on. There are some additional properties. These two fields are basically the same thing. Log on to. If you want to provide a domain address here, you can do that. This is going to take your domain address automatically. User domain name, again the same thing. If users that are going to be accessing this account, you can define their domain name. For us, it's going to be democom itself. And remote machine access is something that when you want to limit your account to access a few servers only. Let's say this is, if it is a domain administrator account, it's going to have access to all the systems that you have joined within your Active Directory domain that you have kept within the network. But if I want Pi1 to be able to access only a 4 or 5 servers, and this is, I'm talking only about CyberArk, the user that has the password, they can use the password to log into any servers if they are logging in from outside. From CyberArk, we can limit it this way that if I write 3 or 4 IPs here, when the user tries to access the account, it's only going to. Only those 3 or 4 IPs are going to be visible and user will not be having the capabilities to define their own IP address. Only those 3 or 4 IP will be presented which you have written here. Connections would only work when you have privileged session manager in place. Alright, it's not going to allow me to create the accounts. Just give me 5 minutes. I'll quickly deploy the CPM. I think they forgot to 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 deploy the CPM. Give it 1 minute. It should automatically be finished. I think they forgot to deploy the CPM. Alright, the CPM was not assigned. Now that we have the CPM, we can see the password manager user. I'll just quickly assign the CPM to the shape and let's go and onboard the account. And right now, I'm not going to worry about the optional properties. I'll just onboard the account with this PA with all the mandatory properties. I'll click on Add and the account should be automatically. What is this? What's going on? I'm not sure. That was a very strange error. I'll take a look at it. What went wrong with the use case? Most likely the CPM was not installed. That's right. But this is how you onboard the accounts manually. I'll just onboard the PA to account as well. Same process. Username is going to be different. Username is going to be different. IP is going to be same because the account was created at the same place. Password will be CyberArk 1. That's it. Basically, this is how you map the policies on the platform level. You just create the safe. You should have all these parameters configured in order to onboard the accounts inside CyberArk 1. Even in automatic onboarding, all you need to have is these 5 parameters ready with you. Even if you do not have the password, that should work. We can do the reconciliation later on. But these 4 parameters are mandatory parameters. You need to make sure that all of them are configured properly before you onboard the accounts. Very straightforward. Let's talk about the use case too. We have 3 users in Active Directory, 3 individual users in Active Directory, Manager 1, User 1 and User 2. 3 individual users in Active Directory, and they need to access these accounts that we have onboarded, PO1, PA2 accounts. They should be able to access these accounts. They should be able to see the password of the account. How do we allow them to access the PVW and then later allow them to access the PA1 and PA2 account? The first thing we are going to do here, we'll create 3 individual users in Active Directory. Just to complete this use case, let me quickly create 3 users in Active Directory. Manager 1. Manager 2. We will be adding this user, all these users, into the CyberArk users group, the group that we created yesterday, and we map all the authorization in those particular Active Directory groups. Manager 1 user 2. These are 3 Active Directory users, 3 individual users. I'll just allow their ID to be a part of this CyberArk users group that we created yesterday. We have mapped the permissions to this particular group here. I'll just start these users here. Manager 1, User 1 and User 2. But this is only allowing the users to have the capability to log into the PVVU. They will be able to use their username and password to log into PVView. But that does not allow them to access the privileged accounts. If they log in now, they will be seeing a blank user interface. No accounts will be there. Let's understand how do we control their accesses on the account level. How do we allow the Manager 1 or User 1 to access the PA1 and PA2 account? The first part of the use case, it says Manager 1 needs to have access to all the accounts that are onboarded on the safe. All the accounts that are onboarded on the safe PA1 and PA2. All the accounts and any accounts that you are going to onboard. Manager 1 is supposed to be owner of all these accounts. We provision their access in the entire safe level. Very straightforward process. We'll just have to define the membership on the safe. We have talked about this before. If I go to use case safe 1 and click on members, we have talked about the safe permissions. Right. I'll just click on add member search for manager 1 here. In this case, we do not search on the vault because the accounts are not created on the vault. Once we have the Active Directory integration in place, we will see the Democom user Active Directory address as well. If I click on search, I can see the manager user coming up here. But now I only provide the basic permissions. Just give me 1 minute. We'll just provide the basic permissions to the manager. One here will not provide the controls to access the activities or see the logs. I just provide the access permission that they are able to use, retrieve, and list the account. But that's it. We provided the permission on the safe level on the use case safe 1 directly. That manager 1 now has the permission to access all the accounts that are onboarded in this use case safe. And that's it. Manager 1. If they log in now with their account, they'll have the permission to access all the accounts that are onboarded in safe. But it doesn't work. Basically for the use case user 1 and user 2 here, there is a different requirement. It doesn't work when the user require access on more granular level. They do not want access to all the accounts. Let's say you have 5 accounts onboarded and user wants access to first 2 accounts and not the last 3 accounts. In that case, we'll have to provision the access. We cannot provision the access directly on the safe level itself. Use case 2. Here the part 2 of the use case, it says user 1 needs access to the PA1 account but not PA2. And user 2 needs access to PA2 account but not PA1. You cannot provide the permissions directly on the safe level just like you did for Manager 1. Manager 1 was assigned the access to the entire container. In this case, we'll have to be more granular with the permission. And this is where we use the object level access control. Since the object level access control is already enabled in this particular safe, we would be able to control the accesses on granular level. We would be able to control the accesses on PA1 account and PA2 accounts separately. But the prerequisite of that the user should be still a part of the use case, safe one. They should still be a member of this particular safe. But we will not assign any permissions on the safe level. We'll just add them with a blank permission on the safe. The prerequisite is that the user should be part of the member of the safe. I'll add user 1 on this use case, safe 1, because this is where our accounts are on board at P1 and PA2. I'll onboard this user 1 without any permissions on the safe. User 1 has been added. I'll do the same for user 2. Without any permissions on the safe, I'll just add user 1 and user 2. And now these users are member of the safe. They still do not have any accesses on the safe level. We will be controlling their accesses on the accounts level. PA1 and PA2 accounts access will be controlled separately. If I click on PA1 here and go to additional details and actions in classic interface, on the right side, the gray area, I'll see a permissions tab here, but this is basically an older UI. This is how CyberArk used to look like in version 10, older versions like version 10. And this still provides a more detailed view of the account information. This is where we would be able to modify permissions of your users. When you have the object level access control enabled, this permission tab will be enabled. On this permission tab, you'll see all the members of the use case safe 1 listed here. All the members of this use case safe 1 is listed here. And since we added the user 1 and user 2, they are listed here as well. Manager 1. If you notice, they have the permission to access these accounts automatically by default because we simply control the access on the safe level itself. We provided the permission, but not for user 1 and user 2. In this case, our use case was that user 1 needs access to the PA1 account. This is the PA1 account. We'll simply provide our user 1 the access to use and retrieve the account. Use means they will be able to use the account to connect to systems, connect to the target machines. And retrieve means they will be able to see or copy the password. For now, I'm going to provide both the options. Click. Similarly, the use case also states that user 2 needs to have access to PA2 but not PA1 account. I will not provide access to PA1 account here for user 2. Instead, I'll go back and control the access for PA2 separately. We will provide the access to user 2. Let's quickly test this. Alright, I'm going to sign out from here. I'm going to change the authentication method. This time we'll log in as our users that we have provided permissions to. I'll use the Manager 1 account first. CyberArk 1. Alright, if you notice the PA1 and PA2 account is visible for Manager 1. If I click on Show Password, it's going to provide a dialog box where I have to write the reason to access. Just write test. Let's see the password. The password is visible for PA1 account. If I had PSM deployed here, the manager, one would also have the ability to connect to any target systems using PA, one which we are going to see later on in these sessions. Let's try to log in as user 1 and let's see what is the difference in the permissions. For user 1, if you notice, the PA1 account is visible but not PA2 because we have controlled the accesses on accounts level. We only allowed the access to PA1. If you log in as user 2, you'll see the password for PA2 account but not PA1. Let me quickly log into the private client and I'll show you the users that are going to come up here. Administrative tools, users and group. If you notice, the transparent entry for manager 1 is created here. User 1 is created here. User 2 is created here. On the board, we have transparent entry for Active Directory users. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@therightuptalk.com.